It's called The Pack, and an African Space Odyssey series called Johanse. And these are both going to be going from page to screen very soon. What's up, Paul?
Hi. And well, you said it's about page to screen. The Johanse trailer just dropped live, so.
Whoa! Yeah, there we go.
About that finally.
Can't wait to watch it, Paul. Can't wait.
Yeah, we're hoping to put that out here as well. So let's do this. We're going to kick things off with a question for all of you guys, but I'm going to start with Jide. I'm going to jump with you. So let's talk about the impact of African culture on all your work, okay? Just tell us a little bit about, of course, being African, how that has inspired you and what it is it's transitioned, how it's affected your work and what you do now, and how that shows in everything you guys create.
Just take us back a bit, but keep it short. Of course, like all of us here, we grew up with comics that didn't have proper representation. And for me, I know that I love anytime I wanted to make a decision, what really stopped me from doing something really stupid was because I really just wanted to be like Batman and Superman, right? So I'd ask myself, what would Batman do or what would Superman do? And at the end of the day, that would guide me into doing the right thing. But as I grew older and, a lot of the things that kind of guided us as young men are really fading away. I mean, everybody's taking jabs at religion these days. What mommy and daddy says doesn't really matter that much anymore. People don't really pay attention to schools. So I thought that, why don't I go back to that place and pull from that, rich resource that I loved so much, and that kind of put me on the right track. But the problem I also thought was that, look, it becomes very difficult to tell people that look like me, people that are a lot darker than me, that act like this person because this person is just like you. And so that inspired me to want to create Black heroes, right?
Lovely.
But also, I thought, first things first, we don't have proper representation for our culture and its relevance for today and the future. Also, simply because the world has managed to kind of paint Africa mostly in the wrong light. I mean, every continent has its bad sides, but it seems like all the cameras are pointed at the bad sides of Africa. And so that really pushed a lot of what we were doing at Comic Republic, where we were like, look, we're going to go into our past. We're going to show the relevance of our past. We're going to show the rich sides of our culture, but we're going to make characters that are relevant today, that kind of translate and interpret what Africans are like today, how smart we are, how beautiful we are, how amazing we are, and the fact that even we can save the world better than, I don't want to say the word, but...
Well, I will agree with you. We are definitely beautiful. I want to kind of link that straight off to Roye, because I'm curious to know, Roye, how much of that can you agree with? And is it all or just part?
I mean, yeah, definitely. I would say all of it, because Jide and I share the same inspiration in terms of why we started this. Even for me, like coming into the industry in I believe it's 2014, I really started to get serious about this. Jide was really one of the very few that was doing it as a level of excellence that I aspire to do so. So I think we share that same conviction about Africa's past and how it can inform the future. And then not only focusing on the dark sides of the continent, not that these things shouldn't be reported or put into entertainment, but just balance it out with the many, many great achievements, past, present, and future, as well, because that's what, if you look at American culture and American entertainment, there's a balance, right? You have movies that show certain things that are not so pretty, and then you have it balanced with, the hero overcoming and showing the good sides of that culture. But with Africa, it always seems to be focused on just the negative. But I would also say, the last thing I would say about that, to add to Jide, is that honestly, the easiest way to answer your question is just to see the impact of the unfortunate death of Chadwick Boseman and just how much Black Panther means to people, not just in Africa, but just literally all over the world. What we do is very important. What the people that support us do in terms of supporting us is extremely important, because it allows more stories like that to be told, and it creates a situation where it's not just Black Panther we have, but we have a multitude of these heroes, out there as well too. So I think rather than focus on, oh, this is what YouNeek Studios has done, I think the best example is to see how people respond to Chadwick's work. And for us here, it's all about all of us here, and I think I can speak for the rest of the panelists, seeing how we can take that and stand on his shoulders and to be inspired by what he did to continue that legacy as well.
Fantastic. Dakwe, you have something to say?
No, I've got a question, but I'll wait till we speak to Paul first before I drop this on everybody.
Makes sense. So let me run to Paul. Now, Paul is an amazing guy. Like, talking to Paul, I will just preface this. He is studied more about the cultures I'm supposed to have grown up with at a closer level than most. And I say that, with a lot of respect. Paul is actually representative of what you might call the African diaspora, people who are of African descent, but were not born and brought up. So maybe if you can just start by telling us a little bit about your history and how it connected to African history and your journey to get there.
Well, thanks for the intro, by the way. So being part of the diaspora is pretty particular in the sense that you share multiple cultures, and depending on how much you relate to the continent, that will affect your experience as someone in the diaspora. So as far as myself, I'm of a West Indian descent. My father is from the French West Indies and Martinique, and my mother is from Grenada. And as a result of that strong Caribbean heritage has its own culture, which is, still very many elements of African culture infused in that. But then, and usually that would be enough for some people. But my parents, my late father, they started a business in West Africa about 30 years ago. And as a result of that, I was able to travel across the continent since I was a child. So I've been to nearly every country in Africa. Some of the countries don't even exist anymore due to political issues. But so that gave me a very wide and early exposure to the continent. And that, like I said, completely changed my point of view of what I consider to be as a Black person and as someone who's African descent. And as a result of that, my parents working in Africa, at one point they wanted to live there with the whole family. So that was when I actually moved to Burkina Faso with my family. And I spent my senior year of high school there in the capital of Ouagadougou. And that was where I was fully immersed in the culture, not just visiting, and actually living there in Africa, which was very informative. And that the biggest thing that appealed, that really was more of a culture shock for me, was realizing this separation that local Africans felt towards me, where like it wasn't that kind of like homecoming sense that many African Americans would probably expect wasn't really there. It was more like, oh, we're happy that you're here, but you're a tourist. You don't really have a connection to the culture. And I didn't know how to accept that. That was very interesting for me. But the one person that actually did fully welcome me and saw it was this griot named Mokhtar, who's from Senegal, and he's the one that introduced me to other bunch of griots. And that was when he very specifically told me, he said, but I don't think you're going to return back to Africa. Now, I had no idea at this time. He said, I don't think you're return to Africa, but we do want you to take this to our brothers and sisters over there. And that was where my whole point of view towards this whole thing changed. And it wasn't so much about needing, brothers and sisters in Africa to accept me, but rather for me to take our ancestors' culture and to reconnect the diaspora, which is desperate to try and connect with their culture, and then have them reformat it in a way that can be applied to the new cultures that they've created over the past hundreds of years. So that's been my mission for the past 10 years. And I really enjoy it, really like creating those bridges, just like you have Roye and Jide that are doing, terrific work in Africa. My job is to try and connect all facets of the African experience across the diaspora, across the world, and then seeing how that mixes into other cultures, et cetera. So Well, permanency is web, so to speak.
Fantastic.
Right. Sorry, Jay, can I just jump in on this question? Because I want to lead on from this whole diaspora thing. Now, I was born in the UK, but I did move back to Nigeria. I lived like my formative years for 14 years in Nigeria before coming back to the UK. And so I've got kind of like a divided identity. So I'm both, in my mind, I'm both British and I'm both Nigerian. And I'm kind of secure in my identity. But what more and more, as a father now, and I've got children now, I'm more and more worried about them identifying with the African side of things, getting people to represent them. And which is why I'm kind of proud of some of the work you guys are doing, because I've started to share some of your works with my children now. Because I want them to know, oh, not everything that is good comes from America, comes from the UK, comes from French. We have equally talented people coming out of Africa. When you guys are writing or when you're doing your work, does it ever cross your mind when you think about African children growing out, growing in a culture that's not in Africa, i.e. people growing up in the UK? Does that ever, is that anything that you actually take into account?
Yeah, I mean, to me, that is one of the main reasons I even started doing what I'm doing. And I'm sure the rest of the panelists share similar experiences. But growing up, I was once those children you're referring to, right? You grew up. I grew up in Nigeria. I only moved to the States when I was 16. So, like you, I've spent half of my life growing up in Nigeria and half of my life growing up here in the United States. Although I do go back, frequently. But the point I was trying to make is that, growing up, we didn't have, a lot of, if any, like African superhero, especially as it pertains to animation, because that's really what was prevalent back then. Although you could get comic books in Lagos, it wasn't rampant as it is, in the UK or here in America. So animation is where you could watch Spider-Man, Batman, the Ninja Turtles, Transformers, all these different characters. And you very quickly understood that there were no Africans, except maybe a few. And even the way they were portrayed, it was more like, when in the jungle, or, they have powers that are related to, animals and things like that. And again, nothing that there's anything wrong with that, just provide balance. But for me, it's about, sort of trying to change that narrative. And everything that I do, well, I'm not going to say everything that I do, but every time that I put something out there, I'm always thinking of that child in me, like, what would I have wanted to see? And how do I make it accessible for that kid to be able to see not just the heroes being people of color, but actually the creators? I think that's even more important is for them, because growing up, I didn't think I could write comics or direct animation or direct, a movie or whatever the case may be, because I didn't see people that looked like me do it. So I think panels like these are excellent because it gets people, not even kids, even adults that don't believe it, to see that there are people that are actually doing it successfully as well.
Can I also take that question, just from a different angle that I think is really important? One of the things, like, I grew up in Nigeria. I literally just moved to England maybe 2 years now. And one of the things for me that I really wanted to address was the shift of power, right? And I'll explain that, so even though I wanted to create comics, I tell everybody that, look, here's the first thing. We're not an African comic company. And everybody goes, what? I say, we're a comic company that happens to be African, right? And so what that means is that we're creating comics for the world, but we're creating comics from an African perspective, right? And we're doing this to create touching two things. One is to create capacity. You take a number of young people coming up in the world in a so-called third world country, which most African countries are called, and then you give them the skill to create products that could sell anywhere else in the world. Right? That's number one.
Yep.
Right? The movie business, the comic business, the gaming business is a billion-dollar industry. And you have people creating games from all over the world, but not from Africa. You have comics selling, loads of copies, turning into movies like Black Panther, creating people like, T'Challa, right? But most of them are not coming from Africa. And then I thought, why don't we, bring this power, this shift of power to an African country, right? Like, I have close to over 100 people that work with me, and we get business from all around the world. So people, I constantly have meetings with people from different parts of the continent. And so people like my team and artists are generally benefiting and, enjoying, getting financial benefits and then building capacity. And most of these people will eventually leave the country to become industry leaders in other places. So even from that perspective, I was looking at things like that where people from the continent and Black people in diaspora, could shift the power of influence, and we could also do a lot of capacity building with what we're making.
Excellent.
Interesting. It's interesting that you'd mentioned that going from that angle of sort of building the artistic and creative capacity, and doing more than just telling the stories from this point of view, but rather empowering people to tell the stories from that point of view. That's really fascinating, Jide. But that makes me interested in asking you a question, and I would also want to throw this question out to Roye and Paul afterwards. And this is more of a personal question. So, of course, now you're creating all these opportunities for the new up-and-coming creators and artists. The question that I would have for you is, how was your journey as a creator and a collaborator? Can you give us a little bit of detail about the path that you took to get to where you are now? Was there something similar to what you're providing for others now for you? Or did you have to make your way in the world in a unique way?
I think since you said in the unique way, I'm going to allow the studios to answer that question first.
No, I mean, let Paul go. I'll say let Paul go. He's been too quiet. That's not usual. That's not usual for Paul. Paul is never quiet. So let's hear what Paul has to say.
Well, for me, that question is mainly embodied by the fact that the ideology that I always had is, if you can't afford to get something done, or if there's too much bureaucracy, teach yourself how to do it and go ahead and roll up your sleeves and do it anyway. And that's literally been my mantra. That's how, when I first published the first issue of the pack in 2015. And before that time, I'd never done comic book before. I had to teach myself how to format it. And everyone kept telling me, they're saying, well, there are several different roles involved in production. Like, you need an editor, you need a colorist, you need a penciler, and an inker. And I said, well, I don't have time for all that. I'll do it all myself. And that's exactly what I did. And after I did the first time, teach myself to do that, I did the second time and the third time. And before you know it, you're churning this out. Because if you wait for, the industry to catch up, or for the opportunity to hand itself your lap, before you know it, 4 other guys have already raced past you. And when you have a mission like this, there's no time to wait. So, as far as like paving the way for myself, or finding my way how to do it, that was that's always been the way that I operate. And then, more importantly, I actually didn't originally want to get into comics. And it's interesting, with both Jide and Roye, how they really have a passion for comics, from based on their upbringing, how it was impacted them, and so that creates a certain affinity and attention to their work. It's very much there's a culture that goes along with comics, and you can definitely see that along with their work. With mine, I wouldn't really say that, actually. I mean, if anyone's just read my comics, they're not really the traditional comics that you have, and that therefore affects the way that I tell a story. I came from a cinematic background where I prefer movies, so that means that every panel. So in a traditional comic book, like you really want to get the experience of the action. For me, I kind of want to just take some time to really absorb everything that's going on in the scene, like you would cinematically. So they're two very different approaches. And very quickly, I realized that it's cool to make comic book like that. But after a while, you run out of space. Let's run out of time to tell that story within 27 pages. So I was like, well, I have to make movies then. Like I have to do it. The question is like, how do you make those movies without $1 million budget? Without a producer or a studio behind you? So once again, the same mantra: teaching yourself how to do something. So I taught myself how to animate in 3D, within 9 months, and right after, then after that, and teach yourself to animate. That's one word that is an umbrella term for like 10 different other jobs. There's, like just being a texture artist is a job within itself. Blocking and modeling, rigging, skinning, all these different things that, then also once you have that, having to learn the cinematography, which I had no idea before. Learning cinematography, learning proper composition, camera angles, how to tell a story cinematically, which I thought I knew before when I was doing the comics, which I had no idea about. So that was a very long and grueling process alongside, still having a full-time job, aside of that. So what I would say to anyone to get involved in this is that the sky's the limit as far as you're willing to push it. And so, like a lot of people, like they read these inspirational stories. Well, he was able to do it. Like Tony Stark was able to build this in a cave, with a bunch of scraps. Like that kind of mentality. And yeah, that all sounds really good, but they're not but in Iron Man, they're showing the montage that just the inspirational music. It only took like a few minutes for him, for you to get to that point. That's actually months of grueling work. That's not as sexy and fun to look at. In order for you to get to that point, it's not like some magical thing that falls from the sky. And if you're willing to do that, then you actually will be able to, I guess, make miracles and do that. And I think that what I would definitely tell other people, particularly writers of color of African descent, that once you understand that, then you're not afraid of it when it comes, and you'll still stick through it, and then you'll have less people giving up and more people, following through on their dream. Because I keep seeing all the time, people get burnt out because what they were involved in doing ended up being bigger than what they'd signed up for. And I see them bummed out because they still have the dream, but they don't have the drive. So it's very important to let these new creators understand what you're getting themselves into. I'm pretty sure that Roye and Jide can attest to that too. This is not an easy job. This is definitely not for the weak-willed. We're not even like big time like Marvel or DC or anything, but there's a lot of work just to get to this point, and you're fighting an uphill battle. So it may sound kind of depressing for some, but once you understand that, then you really have the people that are only doing this because they have a passion for it. I mean, we live and breathe this. This is what we do. And I feel that if we have more people like that, then we're really going to see a change. I think we are starting to see a change.
That's an interesting that's an interesting angle to see this from. I mean, you might say that it does sound depressing in a way, but it's also optimistic that if you put your mind to something, you can go ahead and make something out of it. So, Roye, it seems like you're inspired to jump in.
No, I mean, very quickly, I just wanted to. It's important for people that are not just trying to get into industry, but currently in the industry, to understand that what he said is absolute truth. And it's cool to give the motivational speeches like, yeah, whatever you put your mind to, you can do. I'm one of the first in line to give those type of speeches, but at the same time, reality is, how the trainer says, like reality is often very disappointing, in Endgame, because this industry is not for the faint of heart, whether that's comics or animation, gaming, especially for people like us. So, one thing that I realized this very quick, because initially I quit my full-time job to go into this. And then I went broke in about 2 years, and I had to get another job and work on this at the same time while I was doing it. So it's not a very glamorous thing. And if you don't have a passion for it, if you're just here for money and fame, you very, very quickly be withered out, like literally, like very, very quickly. But at the same time, like that passion does lead to success, depending on how consistent you are with it. And, something that I always say is like excellence wins. So you can't just do this. And that's one thing that I hate. And I think Jide shares this with me too, because I think I've heard him say, it's like when people say, when they read an African book or something done by someone African, it's like, oh, wow, they tried. I hate that statement. Do you understand? Like, it should never be, oh, okay, because it's African, let's lower the bar. Like, that's, to me, like, whatever we do, it's not even just a comics, movie, whatever the case may be. It shouldn't have to lower or change the goalposts, you know, for that. But at the same time, like, you know, again, it's people that stay in this thing for the long term and have a passion, you know, about it. And at the end of the day, you really have to have a plan and not just be aimless about it. Like, what are you trying to do? How long do you like a lot of times people just go into it creatively and forget 100% about business. Right? Like, you can't just, like, you have to, like, what's your business plan? What are your goals? Like, what do you want to achieve in 2 years, 5 years? Do you have a budget? How are you going to file taxes? Right? You know, are you going to look for investors? Are you going to do a Kickstarter? Like, you know, who's going to, like, legally, how are you going to trademark and copyright your work? If somebody offers you an IP deal, like, what lawyer are you going to go to for advice? Like, a lot of people don't think about these things. And for me, I think one of the reasons why I've been able to get to the point I am right now is because 10 years ago, I sat down and I said, okay, this is what I want to achieve, and this is the way I want to do it. Now, I didn't always go to plan, but at least I had something to reference.
So, sorry, real quick, there's a real good question that came in from the audience. I think I want to toss out to you guys, and it's this. It says it feels like the expectation for Black creators is to be a one-stop shop, like Paul experienced, and in many ways you guys have done as well. You see this in hip hop too. How many rappers had to become producers, audio engineers, marketers, and so on and so forth? Do you guys have any theories why that is? And what are some ways to support building the communities that would enable folks to just focus on the thing that they're happiest at doing and they're best at doing?
We don't have investors. Like, if you don't have money, what are you going to do? Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not going to hog the mic, but yeah, I'll let Jide take this. To me, it's very simple.
Money is a very
well, I actually want to take it from a different angle. I would strongly advise against being a one-stop shop, right? You might be pressured into doing that, but I honestly think that's a bad idea, because here's what's going to happen. You're going to be master of all and not good at any properly. That's just what's going to happen. I would say that you focus on one sector, but do it completely as a business, like what Roye said, and I'll pick up from there. The truth is, one of the secrets at Comic Republic is that from day one, for me, it was a business. I keep telling people, do not look as a creative, do not look at your product as a comic book, but look at it as a product, right? And we've had loads of people come to tell us, why are you guys not jumping into animation? Why are you not doing this? And I'm like, look, I am waiting for my product to be good enough for somebody who is good at animation to come and pick it up and make an animated movie out of it. And it's already happening. We're constantly in deal agreements today, right?
But Jide, at some point, like when you first started, right, you had to do the business and you had to draw at the same time. Correct me if I'm wrong.
True, but here's the thing. When I first started, to be honest with you, right?
Yeah.
I started off hiring 3 other people from the very first day. I started hiring 3 other people, a communications manager, right?
Okay.
And a business manager.
I think we should, just to step in real quick, I think we need to point out some little differences here in who had what. For example, Jide, if I'm not mistaken, you came into this and you already had a going concern, a business, when you transitioned from one business to the other.
Yes.
That's your passion. As against, for example, somebody else who decided to quit and start on his own and didn't have either the resources or the wherewithal to pull other people into his dream. So there was a little bit of not an advantage, but you did start off with a plan and with the team. That was your approach.
And let me say this real quick. I think, that's the whole thing about one-stop shop. And I want to let Paul go after this because I know there's a lot he has to say about that. But that narrative is changing as well. You're seeing a lot of collaboration by, African studios, Black artists, writers. Like, people are actually now in the last couple of years actually coming together because we realized that, okay, we have more power. Like, everybody can still have their own individual thing, but we have a lot more power, like when we collaborate and do. And one example is the Malika animation that I put out last year. It was a collaboration between YouNeek Studios and Antio Studios, like one of the top, animation studios in not just Nigeria, but West Africa as a whole. So as much as I want us to address this question, I also want us to point out that it's becoming less of a reality because a lot of people are debunking that whole one-stop shop myth. So I'll allow Paul to go now.
Well, I mean, you both give very insightful answers. I have to strongly disagree with Jide. I mean, respectfully, but I
respectfully but strongly.
I definitely understand where he's coming from a business perspective, but I'm definitely more in line with. So the difference with Roye and I is that, and what you're seeing right here is something very interesting. There are two different ideologies, but you need both in this industry. Where Jide is coming from, he's coming from it from a professional business industry mind, where you want everything to be done to the perfect, to the best that it can be. And having that humility, more importantly, to understand that I'm not an animator, I'm not an inker, but there are other talented people around me that I can get to bring on board, and we're gonna latch on together, and we're gonna get there. And to also have that patience, those people are gonna come along. So I think definitely some credit needs to be given to Jide for that mindset that you have there. If I understand, now Roye and I have known each other for a while, and he'll correct me if I'm wrong on this, but we have a different ideology because we come from more of the, I guess you would say, like the more bohemian artist background, where you could be like the starving artist, where there's the business aspect, but the business came in function of us wanting to be creators first. There's something that we want to put out there. And I'm not saying that that's not saying that's not true of Jide, but it depends where you're coming from. If you're coming from where you want to make this a profitable, booming international business, that's one way. If you're coming from it where the international business is a means to an end for you to get your stories out there that you already had, that you want to communicate, then you're going to go about it differently. One thing that's similar between both Roye and I is that we had several different IPs that we already conceived just in our minds alone. And they're all coexisting in our minds, as long before we even decide to put them on paper. So right. We basically had our own MCUs, in our minds. And so all we're trying to do is trying to take those out and put them into workable franchises that can then work into several things. But they're already stories that we already have. So if you wait around, and when they spend that much time incubating your mind, it's very hard to just, there's so much that's already cooked. It's hard to just pass it off to someone and say, okay, well, now come in and you play it up and you mix your own sauce with it. It's a different ideology altogether. It's much different when right off the bat you're saying, look, I want to hear your ideas, and I want to greenlight 3 new properties. Let's hear your ideas that are on the table, and then we're going to put those together. That's one way of going about it. But the way that we usually go about it is that we don't usually have the luxury of having those people around us. Many times it's, look, do you want to see this happen? Okay, if you have an imagination, put it out there. Well, I don't have the luxury of going online and hiring several different pencilers or different inkers or different colorists to get my job. If that was the case, I never would have got anything done. So it's more what's available to you. And that's where the ideology came from, where you're like, well, if I am going to do it, however, I have to be the best at it. Because it's one thing to say, I'm going to roll up my sleeves and do it, but then you really have to apply yourself to make it done properly. I mean, I just finished the Yohansi trailer last night, and that was a process that took me so long to get to, just because I had to teach myself how to animate from scratch. And it's one thing to teach yourself how to animate. It's another thing to have it meet a certain level of quality. So you're pushing yourself. And I can personally see from Roye, for as long as I've known him, his quality has dramatically improved from the first time I saw him up until now, because he kept pushing himself. And he kept holding himself to a higher level. With Jide, I could definitely say the same thing too. I know Jide much less than I know Roye, but the little I've been seeing in Common Republic, you keep seeing this common trend where if you look up at that one point, you fast forward down the line, you're going to see a dramatic, jump, like a level up every single time. And I think that effort is what's most important. So even if we come from two different ideologies, what's most important is constantly leveling yourself up and saying what works best for our label to produce the best possible product.
I think the moral of the story is that there's just no one way to do something, and a lot of people need to understand that. Like there's
Roy, but you see, there's a problem that I think that we really need to fix as creators. I'm not talking about us here because everybody in this panel has done amazing work and I've come to a place where, that's why we're even in this panel in the first place, right? But there's something about creating.
Actually, you're here because I just like you guys. That's all.
Sorry, my bad. But there's something about the comic and the creative business that we do. It's like we keep repeating the same cycle, and it's why we're not as big as any industry. If anybody was going to tell you that they were going to open an accounting firm, right, or they were going to open an architecture firm or any other major type of business, you're going to find out that one person is not going to try and do it alone, especially if they want to play at the top level.
It depends on the business, though. Like other businesses
that are very successful, I can tell you.
No, but I'm saying that there are people that have started in their garage alone, whether it's software or
not alone. I can even.
Yeah, no, they have. They have people.
But see, before I left school, I had drawn 200 comics personally that my mom burnt, right? So I'd been trained in doing things by myself, fully drawn, colored, and lettered, right? But the thing is, for me, I wanted it to be a venture. And I'm not saying that that wasn't the mindset from the beginning. I'm just saying that if you want to do something, like you've always said, let's do it well.
Of course.
Right? And then I think it's better you take the time to build the infrastructure from the very, you mentioned a lot of important things.
That depends on the person, though, just like you said. Not everyone's different. There are some people that will look into that and they'll realize that.
Nora is trying to get in. Like,
yeah, I'm trying to get in here.
Yeah. You look like a dad, like that 3 kids.
I'm like, that's the problem when you wrangle creatives. It's like, my goodness, guys. Hang
All right, Nora, go.
All right, so real quick, before we do anything, we are kind of pressed for time, but wanted to let everybody watching know we are going to we have a little bit of a treat in that Paul happens to have that finished trailer he's going to share with us live on this panel. So if he's ready, we're going to prep for that. Sure. But I do want to say this. At the end of the day, there are always going to be different approaches, different paths to success. And that is the beauty of life. That's the beauty of being a creative.
No, totally. All I'm hearing here is the Marvel approach, the Disney approach, the Image approach, different approaches. And on the journey, you take different paths, but you're all ending up in the same place with what I'm saying, a great product. Now, and so I can see how people different mindsets. Because if you're a professional mindset person, I can see how you'd be like, Jide, well, listen, I'm going to start from the very beginning. I'm going to do this way. I'm going to be very structured. I'm going to get an accountant and lawyer. And I can also see from the Roye and the Paul's view that, actually, I've got all this passion. I need to get it out on the page right now.
And I'm also broke. I'm broke. I have to do everything myself.
Yeah.
I don't have any money to hire anybody.
Interestingly enough,
I completely agree with. We it was just so many times in the past, Roy and I saw from certain conversations where we're like, yeah, man, like I don't know how I'm gonna get this thing out. Like you encouraged me, said, hey, man, I'm in the same boat as you are right now. Like, we've had the same conversation, so. It's not that there's one way that's wrong.
It's nuance. It's just nuance. But I understand but Jide made a very good point. Like, let's not lose that point, which is structure is important. Whether you're doing it by yourself or you're doing it with 1,000 people, if you don't plan, you fail. And
So,
that's what he's trying to get across. Like
interestingly enough, yeah, structure definitely is important, which is also why, Jide, if you had answered the question at the beginning about your journey as a creator, I don't think anyone here would have any doubt about the fact that you actually started off by walking around the streets of Lagos with a folio filled with hand-drawn comic books that you had produced yourself and a website that you built yourself, having taught yourself web development. But at the moment, we right now need to switch to showing a trailer, which
just share the screen right now.
Yep.
Which Jay will hand over to. Yeah.
I can't wait.
It says host disable attendee screen sharing.
Uh-oh.
Oh.
Paul, you want to act out the trailer?
You're co-host, Jay. You should be able to do it.
Say again?
You're co-host. You should be able to do it.
Jay.
Certainly good.
Go ahead, share.
Okay. Yep, still saying disabled.
All right, so Jay's not showing it. Paul, you're showing it?
Oh, yeah, Paul's showing it, not me.
Yeah, I'm showing it, yeah.
Oh, my bad.
All right, there.
Yeah, he'll make you a co-host. You can do it now. You want to try it now?
Wait, I can't wait.
Please delete all the inappropriate things on your desktop.
Sharing. There we go.
All right.
Why isn't it?
Are you sharing your audio?
You didn't. Yeah, you should. You have to.
When you share, you have to share your audio.
Like go back. Like stop. No, stop sharing. Pause.
Yeah, guys, the sound isn't working.
Yeah. Stop sharing. Stop sharing first. Like click stop share. Should be at the top.
And we're having technical difficulties. Mike.
Oh, you have to stop sharing it first.
You have to stop sharing and then go back and share again. And at the bottom, select the audio.
Yeah.
Paul, can you hear us? I guess we're gonna have to watch it. It's gonna play the music in my head.
Still looks amazing though.
Yeah, the craftsmanship on the masks alone.
Wow.
Nice.
Very cool. Ultra cool.
I love this scene.
Interesting. Okay, interesting. Thanks a lot for that,
Nice
Paul.
one, Paul.
Quite a few of the things, I noticed there are a few things in there, such as the masks, which are things that I recognize as being based on actual designs.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can, Paul.
Okay,
Yeah.
I can't hear you guys anymore for some reason.
This makes me wonder, is there much...
I don't think Paul can hear us.
Paul, can you hear us?
No, he can't.
No, he can't.
There's been some audio shuffling.
Ah, I see.
Yeah.
Okay. So while he's sorting that out.
For some reason, my sound is off.
Oh, okay. No worries. We will hold on for you. Okay, so we've got that muted.
So
while he's waiting, I'd like to pass. Yeah, Jay, you were going to say something?
yeah, I was going to say the first thing I want to say about that trailer, and I happened to have been privy to seeing some of it beforehand, was I was stunned by how rich and how layered, not just the craftsmanship that went into it, but the history that's evident at the back of it, the foundational history that's going on there, because this is tying Afrofuturism into African history and just dragging that all the way through in a rich, beautiful way. And the thing I asked Paul then was asking about how much research he had done and the number of tribes that are represented, the number of African cultures and subcultures
Yeah,
that are
exactly.
represented in that work.
Exactly. That was That exactly, Jay. That was exactly what I was thinking. Taking a look at that trailer, you could see quite a few of the influences there, and I'm interested in finding out what those influences are from him when his audio gets back.
I'll tell you this much.
While we're waiting for him, perhaps Roy and Jide can give us a little bit more detail on the influences that have the things, the African and Western influences that have fed into their work.
Actually, I'm going to need to put a pin in that for one simple reason. We've had a blast, a great time, but we are kind of running out of time. We literally do not have the time to have.
Yeah, I'm listening to talking heads right now.
So what we're going to do is this. First off, please, by all means, everybody, check us out at the Naija Nerds on social media and look at NaijaNerds.com. We have further interviews with these guys, deeper conversations where we kind of get into some of these things, and you can watch some of those later as we put them out. But I'd like everybody to take the time to just go around and tell them, audience, where they can find you, where they can find your work, so that people aren't left hanging, because a lot of people love what they just saw. So I'm going to start with Roy.
Yeah, it's for me, it's very simple. It's just at YouNeek Studios, YOUNEEK, and then the word studios. So at YouNeek Studios on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and YouNeekStudios.com is really the home for everything. Yeah, that's the easiest way to get in touch. You can shoot me an email, send me a DM on all those channels, and I try to respond as quickly as possible. But yeah, it's been a blast being here.
Fantastic. And I'm switching to Jide.
All right, so the website is thecomicrepublic.com. That's THE, comicrepublic.com. Facebook is Comic Republic, which is Facebook/Comic Republic. Instagram is Comic Republic Media. And if you visit our website anyway, you'll just immediately be able to link to any of our social media channels. At Comic Republic, we're just really excited to push the African narrative forward. So we can't wait for you guys to join us in that journey. Thank you very much, guys, for having me here.
Fantastic. And Paul.
Yeah, so just like the trailer said, you can find me at MidasMonkee.com. That's monkey spelled with MONKEE. All our news goes through there, or you can find us on Facebook. On Facebook, we have, if you want to specifically follow Yohanse, just type in Yohanse on Facebook. We have also the Midas Monkee page on Facebook. Our other series, The Pack, just type in The Pack series on Facebook and you'll go in there. On Instagram, it's just Midas Monkee, at Midas Monkee, and then we're also same handle for Twitter as well. So that's, but I would say the main hub would be through the website.
And you can find me, Dakpo, and Wale, the Naija Nerds, at our website, NaijaNerds.com, Naija Nerds.com. You can also listen to our regular podcast. It's on pretty much anywhere you get podcasts, your Spotify and all that. And you can find us on social media at the Naija Nerds, pretty much everywhere you find us, except for OnlyFans, which we're considering. Some people are making multiple millions doing that. Imagine me dancing. Imagine Wale doing other stuff. And Dakpo doing whatever daddies do. If you're into dad bods, check us out. But anyway, you can catch us at all these places. Thanks for watching. Thanks for being with us. Oh, I still have a few more minutes. I didn't realize. My mistake.
Yes.
Oh, I don't? I'm out of time. Great. Thanks for watching, everybody. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Nice being here with you guys. Roye, Paul, awesome job.